Right.
You don't see that in rivers because it's ever-flowing fresh water. So your money needs to flow. Success needs to flow like water. As water comes in, you need to give water out. I got back into my faith because I wasn't seeing the bigger picture. I was seeing success, but it always came with a contingency. And I wanted to stop those contingencies from happening. I was tired of seeing success while having to suffer the consequences of a setback. If you're worried about me, pray for me.
That's it.
And if I'm worried about you, I'll pray for you.
Oh!
Welcome to Breaking Barriers. You know your path. We know the obstacles. And we can teach you how to tear them down. And now your host, CEO and founder of Adapting Social, John Vigero.
All right, guys, welcome back to Breaking Barriers. I'm super excited. We have a familiar face back on. So what's crazy is that the last time you were on Breaking Barriers, I think it was fucking 2018 or 2019 or something crazy.
Dude, I think it was 2019.
It was a while ago.
It was.
Yeah, right?
It was 2019. We did our first sit down, and then I think I came back for Lions Mentality.
Yes.
In 2019.
Yes.
And then here we are, dude. 2025. Boom. Happy New Year.
Dude, Happy New Year. Dude,
yeah.
So between now and then, so you and Cara came in that first time.
Yeah.
Obviously, the pandemic, everything shut down and stuff like that. So obviously, so much has changed. What's new in your world? What are you up to right now?
Yeah, man. I mean, the pandemic changed a lot of things because my company was heavily focused on brand deals for influencers.
Right.
So when the pandemic hit, all the brands shut down. So they weren't wanting to spend money on influencer marketing. Really changed the landscape of what influencer marketing looked like.
Totally.
So I had to make a shift internally. So I moved all of my clients into the mindset of, hey, this is going to be a grind, but if you want to make money during this time, like you have to figure out different ways to generate it. So you have to take advantage of TikTok. You have to take advantage of Snapchat. You have to take advantage of YouTube, podcasting, Instagram, all the things that it was almost like hitting like little singles. Like you're not going to make until you completely build your brand out. Just the facts of the matter is TikTok and Instagram don't pay you well.
No.
Off of views, right? You could get like 1 million views on something. It might only pay you out $100, $200.
Is that crazy?
It's crazy. It's crazy. And the algorithms are always shifting.
Right.
What they're looking for is always shifting. It's just wild. But we were able to make a pivot. We were able to set our clients up in terms of how to like generate money off of their social medias and also driving traffic to their own unique websites with paywalls on them.
Right.
So that's kind of where everything shifted.
Right.
Everybody was kind of going the route of like, let's go on OnlyFans and let's go Patreon and let's do all this stuff. And I was like, let's monetize off of your brand because you don't have to go into an area where the stigma is this. You can still be TV personality X, you can still be influencer personality Y, and you can generate an income because people like you and they buy into you.
Right.
So you don't have to buy into what you think is successful on that side of things. Force people to buy into you. So that's kind of the direction that we went. We started doing events. We were fortunate. We were in Montana, so we didn't really have to shut down at all. We were able to do content events out there in order to help our clients. Obviously, we had to keep it a little bit quiet. We didn't want people on the coasts getting upset at us. And we really started kind of honing in on that. And then in Montana, we were able to launch boxing events. Now we're the number 2 promotion in Montana for boxing events. So cool, by the way. Which is awesome.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we're taking the company now.
So what made you get into the boxing component? What made you say like, oh, this is interesting, I want to do this?
So when you're in Montana, there's not a lot to do. You're
not riding horses and
so you're seeing the same people. Hey, you can only really ride horses in the summer. So for 9 months, you're sitting there in the cold of winter, being like, what do I do with my life other than work out and go insane? So you're talking to the same people. I was working out at a boxing gym. These 2 really awesome guys, because I was training for a celebrity boxing match that ended up getting canceled because of COVID.
Oh,
so
who were you gonna box?
I was gonna box Ed from The Circle. And he came on the challenge.
I love that.
It was gonna be a good match. I mean, he's a black belt in karate, been competing and fighting his whole life. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be tough.
That's what I love about you. You're always like, I'm going to dive into it anyway. I'm going to try to fuck this dude up.
Yeah, we're just gonna see what it is. And he's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
So like he's a nice guy. So it was really hard to like do the boxing promo of like talking smack to a guy who's like genuinely nice.
Right, and you actually like him.
Yeah, like love the guy.
Right.
Like I've met his family. Like went to Conshohocken and like hung out with them. Conshohocken, PA, stand up. So talking to my coaches, they were like, yeah, like there's a lot of fights that go on in Montana, like boxing events. I was like, oh, like, you know, big promotion and stuff. They're like, no, like just local people who put it on, amateur fights, they put on pro fights. And I was like, no way. I was like, let me see one of these. And I went, and it was at a school gym, like a high school gym.
Right.
Like the fighters were warming up in the locker rooms, like with
School
the bathrooms,
mascots.
like with the urinals and all that stuff.
Right.
It looked like shit. You still had the colors from the school.
My God.
But place was packed.
So people loved it.
Packed. There was like 500 people.
Wow.
In a school gym. And I was like, what is this? I was like, why do so many people show up to like sit in terrible seats
Right.
and have a really terrible experience? There's no food, there's no drinks. They're just watching fighting. And they're like,
Right.
dude, people love fighting out here. And I was like, we should put on our own boxing event. And they were like, all right, cool. Like, you know, we could do it wherever. And I was like, no, I'm going to find us a venue.
Right.
So I found the nicest hotel
Right.
in Bozeman
Right.
that just so happened to have a concert hall. It's like a $2 million concert hall that just
Wow.
got built. They'd never done concerts there. They'd never done anything there. They were just using it for weddings.
Right.
And it's a downstairs and it's a balcony.
Wow.
And then it's got a stage and it has this sound system. It's got lights. It, you know, looks like a nightclub when you turn all the lights
It
on.
looks incredible.
Yeah. So I was like, we're going to do a boxing event here. And they were like, you're crazy. And like not those guys. Those guys
Right.
were like, all right, fine. But the venue was like, boxing is you'll never be able to do a boxing event here. It won't go over well. Nobody's going to show up. And I was like, I think people are going to show up. So my partners, the guys in the boxing gym, their name's Nick and Levi, great dudes.
Yeah.
They handle all the matchmaking in terms of the fight. I handle all of the
Promotion and business.
the promotion, the business, the financing, and I host the events.
Right.
So hiring the DJs, hiring, you know, everything that makes the event like a high-end,
Right.
upscale event. So we did the first one, blew it out of the park, and it has been kind of history after that. Like
Wow.
every time we release an event, it sells out.
Wow.
Like,
so how often are you doing them?
so we started off just doing one a year.
Okay.
Then we got linked up with a charity called Big Sky Bravery, who also does one a year.
Oh, okay.
For charity.
Right.
So we're doing 2 a year,
Right.
and now we are doing 4 a year.
So once a quarter?
Yeah. So
I love that.
So we do once a quarter. We actually stack it closer. So we do one on New Year's Eve.
Okay.
And then we stack 2 kind of in the summer months.
Okay.
So we do like a May, July. And then we do one in the fall. So like
Nice.
one in November. So we you know, it's fun.
So what I love about this is obviously, so you were out somewhere and you see this and you're like, dude, I'm in a packed gym. And you're like, I can do this better. It's almost like freaking Ray Kroc when he went to McDonald's for the first time.
Right.
He was like,
he saw
yo.
McDonald's for the first time. Was like, I could turn this into a monster.
And you're like, dude, this could be bigger and better. So that's really cool though.
Yeah,
And so
dude.
now obviously it's a thing. It's taking on a life of its own.
Yeah, I mean, like, dude, we talk about it all the time. It's like there's so many great ideas out there, and there's so many like businesses that exist, and there's so many
Yeah.
concepts that exist. And I feel like everybody in the world, or you know, especially in the entrepreneurship space, like they're always trying to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
When sometimes all you got to do is just make the wheel more efficient.
Right.
And I feel like that's what we did with the boxing events. It's like everybody was doing boxing events,
Right.
but nobody had the vision to take it to like this high-end, upscale, like New York City vibe, you know, Vegas vibe. And I went in there and I was like, I come from New Jersey, New York. I go to Vegas all the time. I'm
Right.
in South Florida all the time. Everything is big, flashy, all that stuff. I was like,
Right.
we should make it big and flashy here in Montana, even if the people here aren't really into the big and
Not
flashy
used to it.
stuff, because
Right.
they'll love it. And they did, man. And now it's like, yeah, on top of the 4 events we got to do in Bozeman, now we have people from Helena hitting us up.
Oh, wow.
People from Butte, people from Billings, hitting us up being like, when are you guys going to do a boxing
Something
event?
here.
Like, come to our centers now that we have for concerts and try and do it here.
Could you see yourself doing it like once a month in different places around Montana?
Man, I mean, listen, if people want to see fights once a month
Yeah.
in Montana, I will put on fights
Right.
once a month in Montana.
Right.
I think we're being strategic in this regard. So now
Yeah.
that we've got the system fine-tuned, the next
Yeah.
thing we want to do is we want to lock in local sponsors so we could give back to the community, get their name out there,
Right.
and really turn these into a really good money-generating event, not just
Yeah.
for us, but for the community, for the
Totally.
fighters. And it all started because we wanted to give the fighters the atmosphere of like a big fight.
Being in an arena. Like,
Yeah, because like you could be a great fighter,
Right.
but the second you go into an atmosphere where it's a packed crowd, lights are going, there's a host that's hyping the event up, getting the crowd going nuts.
Right.
Your adrenaline's going. You may be a great fighter, but you may lose
Right.
if you never experienced that before. So we're almost like trying to prep these fighters for if any of them get to be good enough to make it to a bigger promotion, they're not going to be intimidated by the noise and the crowd size.
I love it, man. I'm gonna come back to that. So we had a ton of people ask questions. One was like, "Dude, you were back on the challenge," and all of us were like, "Fuck yes!" Like we've been dying for the Paulie return. Was that something like? Obviously, I know there's probably certain things you can't say, but a lot of the questions that came in for that specifically were like, "Are you like blackballed from like fucking the challenge or MTV or something?" Like,
Yeah.
can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I could touch to it
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
So the short answer is I was never blackballed.
Okay.
However, there are powers that be, where sometimes you got to sit for a couple years. Now, I can take accountability on my side of things on what I did to maybe cause me to sit for X amount of time. I do think that 4 years is a little bit much.
Extra.
Yeah, a little extra given the kind of impact that I had
Right.
in my first few seasons.
Yeah.
But what I learned in this realm is I thought it was just competition, but there is also an aspect of politics to it. So you do have to, unfortunately, outside of the game, you have to politic with certain castmates who've maybe been there for so long,
Right.
who hold a little bit more power, who can have say when it comes to people who they want to work with or who they don't want to work with. It is the entertainment business at the end of the day. So it's just like if you're filming a show or a movie, if the star of the show or the movie is like, I don't play well with this person, well, the
Right.
director's going to be like,
Later.
hey, buddy, listen, we got to recast you. And that's just how it goes. I was very excited for both of my returns.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't last as long as I usually do.
Right.
And I can attribute that to a lot of things. I mean, in the time that I had off in those 4 years, I built some really cool businesses.
Right. I was gonna say, dude, like there's been a lot going on.
And when you're building those, like sometimes you just don't have time to like be in your workout grind the way you once were. It's like I was just working out to stay in shape,
Right.
whereas I used to be working out to win the challenge.
Be an athlete.
To be an athlete,
Yeah.
right? So now at this point, I've just been working out to stay in shape. I
Right.
will say though, after going home twice early, I'm back into that grind of focusing on training like an athlete because I have been able to put people in the proper positions within my companies to be able to take some of the load off of me.
Nice.
So I can focus on those things. So now this year, my main focus is me. It's my brand. It's my brand attaching it to my companies. For the longest time, I didn't have my company named after me.
Right.
I kept it separate because I wanted to keep myself separate from wherever. But
Yep.
this year, it's turning into Calafiore Productions and
love
Calafiore
it.
Talent Management, baby.
Yep.
And we are going full force. And now all of the tools that I've given my clients over the year, I want to lead by example and be like, do you see what
Now
I'm
you're
doing
gonna
on
get out
social
there.
media?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm doing on my podcast? Do you see what I'm doing on my YouTube?
Yeah.
Do you see how I'm always working on top of
Yeah.
running this? That's the kind of energy I need you guys to bring if you want to be even more successful than you already are.
I love it. And so the one thing, knowing you and how fucking competitive you are, like if like you going home early twice, that makes sense. And now you're getting hyper competitive with like being training like an athlete again. Because like since I've known you, right, and I even give the story back for people who don't know, like, one of my wife's cousins knew you growing up and stuff, and her dad was always like, yeah, some guy was messing with us, Paulie came out and like fucking kicked his kid's ass and sent him on his way. Like you've been such an athlete your whole life, And the one thing that like makes sense, because it's always like there's give and take, right? Like before, because truthfully, most people go on TV so that they can build some sort of personal brand, and then they capitalize on it. Like most of these people do in MTV and Bravo TV and all these other networks, right? But like you have now put yourself in a position to succeed from a financial and a business perspective. So truthfully, the only thing I'll say from my perspective is like, give yourself some grace for the moment, because like most people want to do what you're currently doing, right? We work with a lot of people in TV that are like, whether they're early phase, been doing it for a while, and they can't capitalize on a business side. It's just tough for them to do it outside of brand partnerships and influencers, like, because that only pays so much, right? Like you can't build a long-term career off just doing that. So, it's like seeing you now be in this zone, right? Even when we reconnected recently, and you're like, bro, I'm doing this thing, that thing, and like you're making movement, and you're building your business, which is your legacy, which is going to help you with your family. You have kids one day, right? So it's like, so many people, when you look at like, because again, when you're older, like way older, and you look back, like you can connect the dots, obviously, and be like, okay, I stopped doing that one working out at that time because I've built the business and that made sense. But we'll never know, right? It's always in retrospect you can connect dots.
Yeah, dude.
But I think you're on the right track is what I'm saying, though. Because,
Yeah.
people know Paulie on TV and they know, like, competitive Paulie. But the dude that I know, that most of the people that are your friends and family that know you, like, you're so loving, caring. You'll do anything for your family, do anything for your friends. But you're so hardworking, right? So that's the thing that's crazy is, like, as hard as you are as an athlete is how you apply it to business. Because you got that, like, killer fucking instinct, right? You're like, how do I fucking take over this industry? How do I take over whatever? So anyway, I just wanted to share that real quick.
No, I appreciate that, dude. I mean, and listen, I consider us close friends.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Like we've had some awesome conversations off camera, off mic.
Yeah.
We align in a lot of the same ways.
Totally.
Going home early definitely drove me a little bit insane.
Yeah.
I think for about 3 or 4 months, I actually might have been going crazy because, losing sucks.
Totally.
But when you have to wait to have to compete again to kind of right the wrongs, it's like with athletics and with business, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you have a bad month, you can have a better month.
Right.
If you have a
You're
bad
back to
year,
it.
you can have a better year, right?
Right.
It's all about perspective shift. If you have a bad challenge showing, you may have to wait a whole year
to get back on
before you get another chance to right the wrong of going home early.
Right.
And, you're not the first person to tell me, give myself some grace.
Yeah.
So I have shifted perspective in the latter part of this year, probably around September, latter part of last year,
Right.
around September, to kind of be like, dude, give yourself some grace, look back on the things that you've accomplished, and really shift this year into being very intentional in what you want to do. So I'm very intentional in terms of getting my body back to being athletic, very intentional in terms of getting the mobility and flexibility back and all that stuff that make me what I was.
Right.
And also I'm being very intentional on the business side of things, like which things, and you understand this, you've built an empire.
Yeah.
Love, what you've built, and it's amazing to see where you started,
Right.
and to see where you've come, and even in the years that I've known you since 2019, where it's gone,
Right.
Which is crazy, and most people aren't able to have that kind of perspective on life as people who kind of go through the grind and go through the fire,
Right.
So to speak.
Yeah.
So we have the ability to look back on where we've come from and be like, okay, what worked the best for us, and what didn't.
Right.
And year after year, you got to do that. So like I'm at the point this year where I've learned all of the mistakes. I've wasted money on things that I probably shouldn't have in terms of whether I thought it was going to be good for the business. That now I know it's not.
Right.
So now it's time to like hone in and be like, this is what generates money.
Yep.
This is the cost of generating money. All right. Now we maximize this and we figure out how to make this efficient and minimize it as best as we can. Right. Whether that means hiring people to do jobs that you're outsourcing, whether that means training people that you already have rather than outsourcing, or you find a good outsourcing partner that you build a long-term relationship with. Right. And that's the one thing that I've learned. It's like the venue at first, when they didn't know if a boxing event was going to work out, they charge us the most expensive fees that you could be charging. Everybody that was working the event charged us the most expensive fees. but now everybody just wants to
Like,
be a
damn,
part of it.
You got to be back. Yeah.
Yeah, and now they're like, hey, we'll do you a favor. We'll work with you here, right? Because the venue's like, wow, every time you do an event, you're pulling in like $20,000 worth of alcohol and food sales. Okay, and I'm like, well,
Paulie, please come back to town.
Yeah, and I'm like,
please.
all right, that's great. I was like, so that means I don't got to pay you $10,000 to rent your venue anymore, right?
Right.
So that's how things work in the long term, and most people quit because you're only making like that much. First you're not making any profit. You're sinking. Then you're breaking even. Then you're only making this for like a really long time.
Right.
And then it takes a jump.
Yep.
Right. And most people don't make it to the jump part because they're like, I can't live like this.
Totally.
And most people quit before they see that next level.
Right. They don't see it crystallize. And I had this conversation. So I try to help and mentor some of these like younger entrepreneurs or people who are like have a business that they're kind of like struggling with. And I had this conversation with somebody who's had an existing business. It's a second generation business. They're taking over from their father. And they're like, damn, man, like we're stuck, right? And like, I want to take it to the next level. And 2 points that you said. One, it's like in business, the reason why typically people don't see that next level, right, comes down to like they don't realize that expenses should be looked at like fingernails. They need to be clipped fucking regularly, right? Because if you're not making money as the workhorse, right, eventually, right, even if you're fucking Steve Jobs, right, like one day you're gonna, like, I had this guy who was like, his girlfriend broke up with him because like he had a shitty job, he wasn't making any money, like he wasn't going anywhere, and he fucking loved this girl. And I said to him, I was like, bro, like, why don't you fucking go do something else? Like, go try to do something else. Now, and it wasn't that he loved the particular thing. He just liked the trade that he was in. He knew it well, and he was just scared to venture out. But so when you combine the fact that like people get comfortable and they're like, well, I'm doing this one thing, and so I'm spending money on this and spending on that. It's like, it's like at the end of the day, it's like if you look at some people, that's why a lot of times people say like wealthy people are cheap fucks. And it's like they didn't get wealthy by not being a cheap fuck, right? They got wealthy because they're so intentional and strategic with where their dollars go. So I think that's the first part. But the second part, back to what you're saying, is like anybody that you and I respect, we look at because they went through fucking hell and back in something. Like there's rarely somebody we're gonna look at and be like, wow, they had a silver spoon in their mouth and a gold one up their ass, and we're like, we love them, they're great because of that.
Yeah.
Like they had to go through the valley in order to be like, who they are today. So that's why I think like some people, when they're going through the valley component of growing their business or being stagnant, they're like, I don't have money, right? Or I'm not getting after it, whether they're married, not married, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Typically it's like money, your relationships, and how society perceives you, right? And it's like, well, I'm not crushing it. Like, what are they ever gonna think about me? But the one thing that is like so crazy is that when you look at the shortcut, right, and you've gotten into your faith, more publicly recently, it's like I feel like God will always resurface your problems. You can't run from them, right? If you're somebody who has an issue with alcohol, if you're somebody who has an issue with being quits on everything, like you just quit on everything in life, it's like those issues, your demons that you were built and born with, they're not gonna, you can't always run from them. You have to face them, right? And that's why typically people try to take a shortcut, and it always winds up becoming the long cut, because either you pay the toll now, or you're gonna pay the toll in the future, right? And I have this fucking thing, I don't know, let me see if I can find it. I'm gonna read this to you because I know, and we'll get this on your side because I know you wanna have kids. And so I asked Chat, so I got ChatGPT to help with me and my company with idea creation. Mm-hmm. We will never use any sort of AI to be copy and paste, because like you get punished for it, number one, on all search engines, but also it's just not like, I'm about authenticity, right? Like what's the voice? So I'll use idea creation off ChatGPT pretty regularly. So I go in there and I go, all right, this year, so I've been using it for 2 years. If I'm like, hey, I'm doing this one business venture, what do you think about this thing? What's the negatives, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I go to it, I go, all right, now that you've known me for 2 years, right? I'm making my goals. So every year, me and Jacqueline sit down at like New Year's Eve, and we both go over individual goals, health goals, wealth goals, whatever, right? And we make them out for the year. So I'm writing these, and I pop it into ChatGPT, and I go, give me a badass, like profound statement that if I don't actually achieve these goals, what's at risk, right? Mm-hmm. And be fucking tough on me. Don't be soft. Mm-hmm. So literally is what it said to me. So it said, your goals aren't optional. they're your standard. If you don't hit them, you're choosing to stay stuck, choosing stress, and choosing to let your family down. Stop lying to yourself. Excuses don't pay the bills. Excuses don't build legacies. And excuses definitely don't create the life you promised your family, right? I'm like, ooh, talk is cheap. Nobody cares about your effort or your intention. Results are the only thing that matters. If you let discipline slip, you're going to teach your kids to settle, showing your team that you're weak and proving to yourself that you can't follow through. Is this the legacy you want, John? You've got everything you need to succeed right now. So stop negotiating with mediocrity. Either rise to your standards or accept that you're holding yourself back. The future that you want isn't waiting. Get to work. No one's coming to save you. And so I have that.
I just hit it to you hard.
Dude.
I didn't know ChatGPT was savage like that.
Yeah, dude. So, but I have this printed out and I have it in my bathroom. So when I'm brushing my teeth and doing my shit, and I have it in my closet when I'm getting ready in the morning. And I fucking look at this thing, man, every day now. And I'm just like, when I look back to the earlier days in 2008, when like the market crashed, my family had financial issues. Like, I was in high school. Like I was doing terrible in high schools and all remedial classes. And I think about like that difference when you say that, like, well, people never make that next jump. And it's like, I think the core, and at least in my own understanding of this, is that people, like the entry ticket, like what you have to pay to get the ticket to be successful, whatever that means to you, is you have to go through fucking hell. It's your own personalized hell, right? And like for me growing up, I'm like a visceral, natural, I call myself a recovering people pleaser. Because like, and especially as a leader, it's tough to be that because you need to be respected. You can't be liked, right? And anyway, so long story short, my point is like, when I look back and I look at those different things and I talk to some entrepreneurs, it's like, everybody's thing is so different because their own issues are personalized to them in this world. And so like for me, it was like, well, how are people going to view me? I'm helping my family, my parents with obviously money and stuff at the time. Now I'm married. I'm like, oh my God, like, I bought a house. Holy shit. Like, am I able to afford this house at the time? And it's like, there's different levels, but at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to like, if you're willing to show up and just fight. And I think that's the one thing I love that's in you. And when we did Lions Mentality, I think that's what we saw in each other. It's like, we're both fucking dogs, right? Like, it doesn't matter what we're doing. If we're shoveling shit, we're going to figure out, how do we make more money shoveling shit? How do we figure out how to optimize the situation? How do we make more shit? Like, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like, bottom line is like, that's, I think, the core in you that I'm so stoked that you found this now venue of like, our channel, better yet, of building this business and doing what you're doing. Because like, that's all you ever really needed. Like once you had, like, it's like a horse waiting to fucking get out of the gates. Yep. It's like, you just needed that fucking channel, right? And now you have multiple channels, but it's really cool to see though.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, man. So there's a quote that I love from this guy, Andy Frisella.
Yeah. He's a beast.
He's a beast.
Yeah.
Absolute animal.
Yeah.
And he always says, the world is always going to need fry cooks.
Yeah, right.
Right. So the option of not chasing your dreams is you're going to be stuck doing something that maybe you don't want to do, right? But that's not to say that a fry cook can't all of a sudden become the CEO.
Totally.
Because if you're the best fry cook, if you look at that job as saying, yeah, I'm cooking fries, that sucks. I suck, right? But if you become the best fry cook, people are going to take notice, be like, you know when the fries come out the best? When this guy's making it. Right.
And that's Johnny Fries is fucking staring
and that's going to bring more to what you possibly could do. You don't know what could happen, right? Because you're the best fry cook. You become the manager. Because you're the best fry cook, you could become the manager, learn how to operate the business, and then you could go and open up your own business of specific dishes for fries. And everybody knows you're the best at making fries.
Totally.
So they're coming to now your, Chipotle of making fries, right? But you never know where the universe is going to take you until you try and do it, right? And the other thing is, and I see this everywhere, right? People posting on Instagram all the time, right? And I always find it funny, the people who post it, do they actually live by it? Right. You have to choose your hard, right? You could choose it now or you could choose it later.
Right.
And another thing that Andy says in relation to this is like, here's the thing. He goes, you could either enjoy your 20s, enjoy your 30s, have a great time, travel all over the place, get all the experiences in the world. He goes, but you are going to pay for it in your 40s and 50s.
Right.
He goes, because you will struggle. He goes, or you could struggle right now in your 20s and 30s, miss out on all the fun things that you're seeing on the internet, that you're seeing your friends doing. And then when you're in your 40s and 50s, you're living like a king.
Right.
He goes, so choose when you want to put in the work. He goes, but you cannot escape the work.
No.
Either you're going to do it early on and you'll be able to relax as you go into your dying years.
Right.
Or you won't do it early on and then you are going to be working up until the day you die.
Right.
Right? So what's more scary?
Right.
Doing it now and having the rest of your life.
While you're young.
While you're young, you have the energy, you have no excuses, you can outwork everybody, you can put in the hours, you can do all that stuff. Or do you want to do it later?
Right.
When you don't have the energy,
right.
when life has already beaten you up.
Right.
Right? So you got to choose your heart, and you got to choose, like you said, when you want to pay the toll.
Right.
The faster you pay the toll, and I love that you brought faith into this, because
Yep.
I did get back into my faith. And I got back into my faith because I wasn't seeing the bigger picture. I was seeing success,
Right.
but it always came with a contingency, right? And I wanted to stop those contingencies from happening. I was tired of seeing success while having to suffer the consequences of a setback.
Right.
And there's always going to be setbacks, but the level
Part of
of
the game,
them, you know, I feel like when you make a deal with the devil, he's going to give you what you want,
Right.
but it's going to come with a contingency. So I feel
Totally.
like I was achieving success in spite of the deal I made with the devil, because it always came with a contingency. There was
Right.
always something else that was wrong, that was causing me pain.
Right.
And then I was masking the pain, seeing the success, repeating the process. But ever since I've turned it over to back over to God,
Yep.
and ever since I, confessed for my sins, and ever
Yep.
since I baptized myself again as an adult,
Yeah.
I now see the bigger picture on what it means to have purpose in life, and what it means to work, and what it means in order to not feed into the temptation of the things that the devil might be dangling in front of your face. And
Right.
it could be anything.
Right.
Right? Some people pick drugs, some people pick alcohol, some people pick sex, some
Right.
people pick gambling, some people pick buying, overspending,
Right.
living beyond their means.
Right.
Right? But there is something to be said when you fall into those 7 deadly sins.
Right.
What becomes of your life?
Right.
Right? And as much as the devil gives, he's going to take more.
Right.
Whereas as much as God gives, he's willing to give more, but you have
Right.
to earn it.
Totally.
You have to earn it. And you're right. He does put those tests in front of you to say, are you going to quit? I am now presenting you with that same option
Right.
that you had 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Are you going to make the same choice?
Right.
Are you going to quit?
Right.
Or are you going to push through? I'm giving you that same option. I'm putting this temptation in front of you.
Right.
Are you going to take it, or are you going to avoid it? So
Right.
I think that if you put God at the forefront of everything, at the forefront of your life, the forefront of your business, the forefront of your relationship,
Right.
across the board, you will achieve success, because he is ever loving and ever giving.
Right.
Right? The devil has contingencies. The devil wants something in return. God wants nothing in return. He
Right.
just wants to see you succeed, because the more you succeed, the more you help your community.
Right.
The more you succeed, the more you help your family.
Right.
The more you succeed, the more you can give back.
Right.
And those are the main things, right? It's
Yeah.
like, if you give, you get back tenfold.
Right.
Right? That's what people miss. And I look at success, and I look at money, and I look at everything now as like a flowing river.
Yep.
Right? If you don't give back, if you're making money and you're not giving back
Right.
to help people, it's like a pond. It's going to rot. It's going to get scum in it. It's going to get algae in it.
Right.
You don't see that in rivers, because it's ever flowing fresh water. So your money needs to flow, and your success needs to flow like water. As water comes in, you need to give water out.
Dude, let's fucking go. I love that. I love that, dude. And you know what, though? Not enough people, big G up top, right? Like, when you think about it, like, it's crazy. One of my friends who's super, super Christian, he said to me a couple years back, he's like, the problem with the world today is that they expect the Bible to conform to them versus the world to conform to the Bible. And to your point, like, when you're giving back and you look at life in that lens, it's you get such different results, because, like, again, like, and Tony Robbins says this all the time. He's always like, the secret to living is giving, right? Like, when you're giving back and you're helping, like, and you're like, again, it's like almost like the quintessential, like, Christmas, right? Like, this year, like, my son Johnny is 2 years old, and I have the twins, who are both 9 months old. It's like those three and Jacqueline are my world, right? Everything revolves around those people. And it's like seeing like Johnny open up gifts, or him being excited, or Vincenzo or Vienna looking at stuff and being so stoked. I'm like, dude, like that's my heart explodes with happiness and love. And in the same way, like if I'm helping somebody out or giving back to something, or like helping my family out, my friends out, whatever, it's like that's always the best. Like, you know, there's nothing better than that, right? Like if you're super successful and you're on your yacht by yourself, like what the fuck's the point of that, right? Like you want to enjoy those experiences with people and bring people along for the ride with you and try to help them up if you could. But you know, it all starts with obviously having that relationship with God and obviously building that. And listen, everybody's different. Like I say this all the time, like I don't try to push that on anybody. Obviously, it's my belief, right? And the one thing that's pretty interesting this year, out of any time, I don't know if you noticed this by you, but this year, I don't know if it's because of the election, with the way it went, but literally, this is the first year that I can remember in a long time that every store I went to, deli, whatever, everybody was saying Merry Christmas. And it was the first time I wasn't like, Happy Holidays, and I'm like, Happy Holidays, whatever. It's like everybody was saying Merry Christmas, and I was like, whoa, something shifted. Did you see that too, or no?
I mean, I've been seeing a lot of things happening for a lot of the years, and it wasn't really until I was awake.
Yeah.
In the sense where, you know, when they talk about spiritual warfare,
yeah,
it is constantly happening.
Right.
Right? Like, you know, when you really do a deep dive into, you know, everything, there's good and there's evil.
Yeah.
Right? So good and evil. We are living on Earth's realm, right? Like that is the universe that, you know, God punished the devil. You know, he is the prince of this world.
Right.
Right? He owns this world, but God still gives us the option to go to a higher place, a higher being, and we don't have to be restricted to the devil's rules here.
Right.
Because he gives us that option. But the contingency is the devil gets to work on you for your entire life. Your entire life. He never stops. If you're favored by God, you're also favored by the devil.
Right.
Right. And the spiritual warfare that has gone on for a very long time has been crazy. So what I've seen the biggest shift in has been people turning over to their faith.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, we're not going to push one faith over the other. There's a lot of faith out there, but the overarching message, right, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Catholic, Christian, right, or whether you don't have a religion, but you just believe in God. Right. Or you believe in a higher power.
Right.
A lot of people have been shifting into that space.
Right.
And shifting into the space of like, I need to do good.
Right.
You know what I mean? So being able to say Merry Christmas without having to worry about getting canceled, that's great. Love that.
Right.
You know what I mean? I say Merry Christmas. I've got Jewish friends. I say Happy Hanukkah when it's Hanukkah.
Totally, yeah.
They say Merry Christmas to me when it's Christmas.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that what this means is we have a moment now in that spiritual warfare between heaven and hell to actually tip it back in the favor of the good. You know, good versus evil.
The good guys.
Yeah, the good guys. Right? I see so many people turning into their faith now.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love seeing the younger, like I see a lot of young influencers putting faith first, right? And like they're actually invested in this.
Which is so awesome.
Which is awesome because I kind of feel like when we were going through our young years, like we were heavily influenced, not by faith.
Right.
Because we were during the time where it was like revolt, rebel, you know, you listen to certain bands like Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, right? Like all these things. And I love Black Sabbath and I love Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
Every single artist from that time has had their coming to God moment, and now they are all following their faith.
Totally.
So at one point, they were influenced by the devil. Now they're influenced by faith.
Right.
And I think everybody has that moment if you're looking for it.
Totally. I agree with that 100%, man. So you mentioned being canceled. Like, in the world we live in now, man, like, you ever worried about that stuff anymore? Like, because I remember, it's funny, when we first did the podcast back in 19, we started Lions Mentality. I'll never forget, like, and I told you this at the time, I had people emailing us, like, because of the whole thing with that one girl you dated that was on The Bachelorette or some shit. I forget her. I don't even know who that is, but like, how, like, you know, I was like, oh, you know, this guy's the worst, blah, blah, like, you know, don't associate yourself with him and shit like that. I'm like, dude, like, you don't even know this guy. You saw him on TV for 30 minutes and like, you think you know this guy?
Yeah, and now probably those same people are like, I love him. He's shown so much growth.
Right. But do you, like, is that ever a thing in your mind anymore with like where the world is at this moment?
I mean, I've never cared about cancel culture. I mean, I think I've always toed the line, and you know, people have tried to cancel me over and over again. I mean, but like realistically, when you take a step back and you look at it, it's like, you're really trying to cancel somebody for cheating, right? How like, people make mistakes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Relationships either work out or they don't. The only
Right.
difference is your relationship is private to your family and your immediate group of friends. Mine is public. It's on the internet.
Right.
Right. So,
Which is tough.
And I've also found this, even with getting back to my faith, even in the religious space, you have people like this.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily agree with those people. The Bible thumpers, right? That are like, you're not. It's like the first thing that I realized, like when I refound my faith and got baptized, is the first thing that they're saying is, we don't judge.
Right.
Do not judge.
Right.
You shouldn't be judging your neighbor. You shouldn't be judging anybody. You should just be trying to be the best version of yourself, walking in the footsteps of God.
Only God can judge you.
Only God can judge you.
Right.
So I find it contradictory when people of faith try to be those police online and those police to their families and friends and their community, where it's like, you're not being a good. It's like there's a difference between accountability, and there's a difference between like kind of going a little bit off the rails. And I feel like some of them go a little bit off the rails.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, stay in your own lane, focus on your own faith, focus on you. If you're worried about me, pray for me.
That's it.
And if I'm worried about you, I'll pray for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Dude, I love that.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't know what the right word is for it. I don't know if Bible thumpers or whatever, whoever, too uptight.
When I say Bible thumper, I mean like the people that are trying to
uptight.
beat you with the Bible.
Exactly.
It's
I know. It's like whatever it is, but it's like those. Like I feel like those are the people who are the most judgmental.
Yeah.
But it almost deters people from coming into the religion or to Christianity when you meet certain people that are like judging you, and then you see like on the back end. Like, perfect example. Like, have you ever heard of like the dude at Liberty University? You know the college Liberty?
I know.
They're one of the
Liberty.
biggest Christian colleges in the country.
Okay.
Like one of the top ones. And the dude, like, again, and typically we don't do drama shit here, but like the dude though, like behind the scenes, the guy who's like a second generation, I think his like great grandfather started the university, super Christian university. This dude would slug in tequila all day long, like having sex with students. Like, and he was like in his like 50s, 60s, whatever he was in, him and his wife were swinging with students, like crazy shit like that, right?
Yep.
And the point though is like, but these like those types of people are the ones who will also sit in the room with you and make you feel like a piece of shit.
Yep.
Because like you did X, right? Or like you did something that like was, like why did you do that, right? It's like, I love that you said that. I think that's a huge takeaway from this. It's like, don't judge anybody, pray for them. Like that's true intention. Like that's true intention. If you really care about me, you're not going to come to me in a judging way. It's different where you're giving somebody like, hey, I'm concerned about you, right? It's one thing.
Yeah.
But it's like different where you're judging like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Just pray for me. I love that. It's fucking awesome.
And it's also, it's like people put too much emphasis on the written word.
Yeah.
And it shuts their mind off from hearing his word.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're reading this as a guideline.
Right.
Right. But you have to tap into your own spirituality and you have to get your own connection with him in order to really live by his word and really live by what this is. Right. Like if I had an entrepreneurship book and you were starting a business and all I did was sit there not starting a business and read this entrepreneurship book and be like, hey, John, you're doing this wrong because it says right here that this is wrong.
Right. And I'd be like, motherfucker, are you starting a business? Do you have a business?
Exactly. Or you would be like this. So it's like, read the word. It's a good word. Right? There's the Old Testament. There's the New Testament. There's probably things that we don't even know exist that maybe have been left out. Right? We weren't there at the creation of this. We are living in a present time. So therefore, you need to find your own faith. And as long as you are living as a good person and you're trying to do good by people, that is the ultimate measure of you walking in his name. Right? You cannot be judging. You cannot be doing that. Just pray for him.
I love it. I love it. And as we get close to the end here, what's like the next step with you, like outside of the challenge, outside of your business, obviously, stuff like that? Is there any other like in terms of athlete type stuff like you plan on doing? Like, so challenges, that was one thing. Dude, I was the other day I was saying that because I know your brother was on Traders, and I'm like, dude, you got to get on that. I don't know if you're already talking about that, trying to make that happen, but I'm like, dude, Paulie would be a savage in this fucking game.
I would love to play Traders. There's been a couple talks, a couple shows. Traders being one of them. House of Villains being another one.
Okay.
I'm interested to see how this Deal or No Deal Island plays out because that looks pretty amazing.
Cool.
There's another one called The GOAT that's out there. That's cool, but For me, I'm very much, my
Yeah.
doors are open.
Yeah.
I'm willing to do it. However, because I am who I am and what I am, I have to win on the challenge first.
Yeah, I love
have
that.
to-
I love that.
I have
Your
to do
competitive
it.
nature.
Yeah, I'm at a point where everything is great in my life. I don't even care about the money. I care
Right.
about the title.
Right.
I care about the winning. I
Right.
care about that. So I would like to string together a couple wins.
Yeah.
And do that. And then as far as everything else, man, like I really this year want to put a big focus on speaking to people about my journey back towards God.
Yeah.
Back into faith.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of people can benefit from that. I would like to speak to people, regarding the mistakes I've made through
Right.
life.
Right.
A lot of things that I've never spoken about, a lot of insecurities, a lot of vulnerability.
Yeah.
But I think that being able to talk about those things and for people to be able to relate to them and show them how that led me back to my walk in faith, maybe that can inspire people to, also walk in faith. I don't want to see people struggling anymore.
No.
I don't want to see people in pain anymore. I don't want to see people hurting anymore. I want us to heal as a human race.
Right.
Right? Because there's only two options. We could either keep going the path that we're going, and
Right.
just like Egypt and just like Rome and just like all of the other great civilizations that have ever existed, we will burn down, we will collapse.
Right.
And
Right.
I feel like we're on the brink of that until we
Yeah.
push ourselves back. And I want to see everybody thrive, so that way we avoid burning down as a human race.
Yeah, man, I love that. I really do. So wait, one thing you were saying had me thinking. With what is that? The challenge. Oh, I don't see you being in the House of Villains. 'Cause, I never viewed you as a villain.
Yeah. No, I mean,
as a public perception thing, like.
yeah, well, that's because we kind of share similar mentalities. So what you
Right.
what you interpret as just savage gameplay,
Okay,
other
okay.
people interpret as that's really mean, right? And and that's it. I mean, I have had an arc.
Yeah.
So since I've come back, I have had a hero arc, which
Yeah,
that happens.
good.
But a lot of people still remember those old days. But it has been cool in the
Yeah.
past 2 years. Which is crazy because
Yeah.
it's like. My first seasons that I was on, it's like I make it to the end every time.
Right.
Everybody knows who I am, but everybody is very mixed about me. Either they
Right.
hate me or they love me, right?
Right.
And then it's like I come back, I have two, in my opinion, terrible seasons going home early. But those 2 seasons had such a crazy impact on the perception of me from an arc standpoint where people, and initially I was like, am I more relatable because most people that watch the show are losers? Or was
Right.
there actually something that they can relate to in what I did? Like, are they only relating to the fact that I
Right.
went home
They
early and
lost,
that's what would
right.
happen to them?
Right.
And they only hated me because I made it far?
Yeah.
But no, like, their actual perception of me shifted because I actually came back and I was like, I don't really need this anger anymore.
No,
I'm just
right.
here to compete.
Positive vibes.
Yeah.
So, and then one of the last questions, I almost forgot this, and we got hit up, so many questions were about this. So, what's up with you and Cara? Are you guys still together?
We are.
Oh, good. Okay, so you
we're
guys
here.
are still doing your thing.
Yeah,
Good.
we are still together, still going strong.
Good.
But we are, we both have taken a step into faith.
Good.
And we have, it's tough when you're in a public relationship because
So
everybody watching, they always want to know what's going on. And honestly, we made a decision this year that we're like, we don't owe people
Fuck no.
that. We don't owe people
Right.
answers. We don't owe people what's going on
Right.
in our personal lives. Like, what we put out there is what you get.
Right.
And that is what it is. Like, until you see a news article saying that
Yeah.
we've split, we haven't split.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
Right.
it's very important as we grow, right?
Right.
Like, there's 3 dynamics that we have to hit publicly.
Right.
We have to hit our own personal brands. So that's 1 and 2 right there.
Yep.
And then we have our brand as a unit.
Totally.
As 3. Right. But Cara has her own endeavors that she's doing, and I have my own endeavors that I'm doing in terms of business, right? Like,
Yep.
I'm the one who I run the business, I do the business, I invest in things, and I
Yep.
do that. And Cara, she's the one who helps me break down social media
Right.
strategy, and she
Right.
focuses on being an influencer, and
Yeah.
that's what she does.
And she crushes it.
Yeah,
so.
and she crushes it. She does a really great job. I
Yeah.
mean, if she puts something up there, people are buying.
Right.
And that's a skill set in itself.
Yeah.
Right. Like 95% of influencers can't just put stuff out there and people will buy.
Right.
She can put stuff out there and people buy. She's very good at what she does. But as far as us, we're just keeping everything as
amazing.
private as possible.
As you should.
Because
It's nobody's business.
But it ties back into faith.
Yeah.
The only way, like the devil doesn't walk through your front door.
Right.
Find-
Welcome. Man.
You know, he
Yeah.
finds the cracks in the foundation, and that's how he gets in. So I believe that not everybody really cares and doesn't have the best intentions for us.
Totally.
So why am I going to let the devil into my home?
Right.
I don't want the devil into my home.
Right. Fucking love that,
You know
dude.
what I mean?
You've been hitting some fucking straight up good ass fucking God. Dude, the Christianity. Oh my God, this is so good. This is good stuff, man. Well, dude, I know obviously you got to run and we got to go, but I'm so grateful for you being back here, man. I'm
you,
glad
brother.
you're doing well.
Truly.
You know, I'm so happy to see you, like I said, in your lane, getting after in business, proving people wrong, which is what you do for a fucking living, right?
That's it, baby. That's all we do.
It's it, you know, and also just seeing you win, man. It's been awesome. And I love seeing good people like yourself just fucking win, man. And for people who are watching this, if they live under a rock and they're like, hey, how do I engage with Paulie, or how do I see what he's up to, or where can I find him, or how can I go to one of the boxing events?
Yep.
Please plug that.
Yeah, I'm just at Paulie Calafiore _ on all the platforms, baby. So we're
nice and
pushing
simple.
that. Yeah, nice and simple. All the stuff that you need to find about boxing events, management, and all that stuff. It's on my social profiles.
And I would say that actually, because we have a lot of people who watch that are like, you know, whether you're, you know, growing in fame or as an athlete or on like trying to get on TV and stuff.
Yeah.
I think they should reach out to you ASAP, you know, because you have so much wealth of knowledge
Yeah.
on managing talent, how to rise them up, get them to the next level.
Yeah, man. And just to touch on something you said earlier, where it's like, you know, you work with a lot of talent and they
Yeah.
have trouble launching their business.
Right.
Well, my message to them is, are you actually trying to build a business, or do you think it's just easy because you're an influencer?
Right.
Because I got news for you. You're not that famous.
Right.
Right. Like I don't consider myself famous. And I think
Right.
that's why I work as hard as I do, because
Right.
I'm like, I don't really have an advantage over a savage. If me and you were competing in the same industry,
Right.
I don't have an advantage over you just because I have
Right.
more followers.
Totally, right.
You're going to beat me if you work harder than me.
Totally.
So I have to remove that aspect of thinking it's going to be easy because
Right.
I have influence and because I've been on TV and all that stuff, because I have to work just as hard as you, if not harder, because you are also able to put in more time. If I have to leave to film a show, well, guess what? You now have a 1 to 2 month advantage on me.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
if you're an influencer and you're trying to start a business, you need to take a hard look in the mirror and be like, do I want to be an influencer or do I want to start a business?
Right.
Influencing will end at some point.
Totally.
Your business is your legacy.
Right.
I don't want to be in my 40s and 50s trying to peddle brand deals.
Right.
I don't want to be in my 60s trying to peddle brand deals. I need something that I can leave behind that is a legacy
Right.
for me.
Love that, man. I love that. And thank you, man. Like I said, time is the one asset we don't get back. So you spending it here with me today, Paulie, means the world, your family. I appreciate you.
Whenever I'm in
And
Jersey, baby, you know.
Happy New Year again, 2025. And what, real quick, because I know you got some fucking fire shit you got to say real quick. But somebody's watching this,
Yeah.
and year over year, they set goals for themselves, and whether it's health, whether it's business, whether it's whatever, relationships, and they're not hitting them year over year over year. What's your statement to them to get them fucking charged up about this year, 2025?
To get them charged up, I think most people fail because they don't set up realistic expectations. They start their fitness journey and they're like, yeah, I want to lose 100 pounds. Well,
Right.
if you're doing it the right way, the
Right.
most you may lose efficiently might be 52.
Right.
Because you have 52 weeks in a year.
Right.
Right. If you are doing the proper diet,
Right.
if you're doing the proper exercising, you're going to lose on average a pound a week.
Right.
Okay. That is the healthy way to do it.
Right.
So when you see these transformations, they happen over years.
Right.
There's no such thing as like, you can get a lot done in the first 8 weeks
Right.
of the year, but what are you doing for the remaining, right, 44?
Right.
What are you doing for the remaining 44? If you only go hard for the first 8 weeks and you're like, wow, look at this, I'm losing weight.
Right.
And then you take off, it's done.
Right.
Right. So like, I would say to anybody willing to do something, you got to be realistic with yourself.
Yeah.
You have to set the goal and you have to say, this is going to take time, but I'm going to commit myself every day, because the alternative is I'm a fat fuck.
Yeah.
The alternative is that when I get into my 50s, if I don't correct this now, I'm going to have health problems. I'm going to have heart problems.
Right.
Right? If you're not making money, if you're poor, if you don't make the change now, you're still going to be poor in your 50s and 60s. Right? And then the struggle is not going to be on you. If you're fortunate enough to have family and friends, it's going to be on them.
Right.
So do you want to put that financial burden on your family and friends to have to pay for your funeral, pay for your wake, pay for all the hospital bills that you can't afford? You got to take it in your own hands, and you need to put yourself before everything else. You have to learn to say no.
Love it.
And you have to prioritize you.
Right. Your growth. I love
That's
that.
it.
Fire. And I read this a couple of months ago, and I'm just gonna throw this out there. I put this on my Instagram story yesterday. But did you know that the average in America, right? I forget the freaking exact percentage, but it's almost like something like close to like 80+% of people, men and women, when they reach the age 30, never do a full sprint in their life again. 80% of America, right? And Rob only does when he's single, by the way.
We love Rob. Do
that's
those
not a
sprints
lie.
when you're single, Rob. Do those sprints when you're single,
Yeah,
baby.
that's the only time. But anyway, but my point though is like that's, first off, that's jarring, right? And like I always like worked out, like doing weights and like doing some boxing stuff, but like I never really ran. And then when I heard that, I was like, dude, I start now almost every day. I'll do like interval. I'll do a mile, but interval jogging and sprinting. And it's like, dude, because when you think about it, even looking at like my dad or most dads, like most people we see that are like the uncle who's like the heavy set uncle, it's like, really, when's the last time that motherfucker ran like and did a full sprint, right? Because there's no need to anymore once you hit a certain age. But I didn't realize it was 30. I'm like, damn, 30 is when we stop running?
Which is kind of crazy.
Unless we're single?
I'm a big proponent on like our bodies track back to ancient times.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So I like to look at it from this perspective, right? Because I mean, I sprinting is part of my regiment.
Yeah,
I love
I was
it.
gonna say, I know
what
you're
I mean?
sprinting.
But I also think about like, what is it like? It's like, oh, we just don't have a need to do. It's like, yeah, we don't have a need to do because we're living so fucking good, right?
Totally.
Back in the day, if we were living and we were aging, guess what we still had to do? Sprints, because there were saber-toothed tigers
running from
fucking
shit.
chasing us
Totally.
down.
It's predators.
Right? We had to also hunt
Right.
for our families. We had to trek. There were days and weeks on end where we didn't have food.
Right.
Right? So I'm now in a place like I do Live Hard every year, right? Which is Andy Frisella's mental toughness program. Starts with 75 hard, phase 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Every year, but now I'm also incorporating different things, right?
Yeah.
So part of the Live Hard program, by the end of it, you should be able to take cold showers and cold plunges and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I do that every day. I do
Yeah.
cold showers
Me
every
too.
day,
Yeah,
cold
me
plunge
too.
every day. Once a month now,
Yeah.
I fast for 72 hours.
Damn.
No food, no nothing.
Right.
Right? And
Are you a fucking ravenous, crazy motherfucker though? Like, are you like so
I'm
hungry? You're
I'm in the middle of fasting right now.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm
Damn.
24 hours into 72.
You're nuts.
But it's
I gotta do it.
It's mindset, it's mentality. You know what I mean? Does it suck the first time you've ever done it? Yeah. It fucking sucks. Day 1, you're starving.
Right.
Day 2, you are angry. But day 3, all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, I could do this for another week. And
Really?
like it's just like cold plunging, man. It's
Right.
just like cold showers. You don't want to do it before you
Like,
go in. It sucks. That first minute is
Yeah.
god awful, but then all of a sudden you're just like, I could do this for 5.
Like, yeah, well-
I could do this for 7.
Right.
Right? So we have to push ourselves to do that. Is sprinting fun? No.
No, right.
It sucks.
Right.
But our bodies were meant to sprint.
Right.
Our bodies were meant to sprint. Like this long distance running stuff, sure, people love it,
Yeah.
but it's actually worse for your joints than if you just went out and did like 10 minutes of sprints
Right.
a day.
Right.
If you were just like, I'm going to line up and I'm going to do 50-meter sprints,
Right.
where I'm going to sprint 50 meters, rest for 30 seconds, sprint 50 meters,
Yeah.
rest for a minute, sprint 50, you're going to get a great workout.
Yeah. And what I will say though to that point, it's true because yesterday, so on my treadmill, I'll do that mile. But what I was doing before was I would walk on like it goes to the 1 to 10 speed. I'll do like a 4, like because I have long legs. I'll walk fast on 4, then I'll go to 10 in the interval to run for a minute straight, right? But this time around, so normally I do it for 30 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And this time around, I just sprinted longer. And I did shorter though. Like I did instead of like, I don't know, like
Instead of a minute.
Yeah, right. So like I just fucking did short bursts, but I did a bunch of
Yeah.
them in a shorter time period. And what would take me 30 minutes to burn 150 calories, whatever, I did it for like 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's like instead of running all these long distances and doing all these crazy things that do beat up your joints, it's like just go out there and fucking sprint. Just sprint shortly.
Just sprint and pray for people.
That's it. Takeaways from this podcast. Don't judge me. Don't give me advice. Just fucking pray for me. I love that, man. All right, dude. I appreciate you, man. Guys, thanks for watching. Go give Paulie a follow if you haven't. And New Year, I hope you're getting after it, guys. Thank you.